Hey, welcome to this video where we will be looking at the Fabius Maximus Beta patch for Humankind. We'll sort of take a look at the key changes in the patch notes here, and I'll give you a little bit of opinion about, I don't know, whether this is good or whether this is bad, or if it's a good change or bad change and that sort of stuff. So let's get going. So first I do a bit of an intro. Apparently it was delayed a little bit, but whatever. Okay, color picker, don't really care. World generation. This is nice. The number of strategic and luxury resources should spawn in the world is a really good change. Like that the player can choose it. Because at the moment I feel like in many cases it's a little bit low for both strategic and luxury. Like sometimes even on a whole continent you don't get all of the strategic spawning, which might be good because it encourages you to go after, let's say, or invade another continent and encourages trade. But yeah, it's good that the option is there. I also like added the random AI persona option because at the moment if you pick them, it makes the game fairly predictable. Like you tend to know what neighbor you're going to get, and because you've played with them a lot, you tend to understand and then sort of have an easier time picking them. Added illustrations, variations, and common units. Nice little bit of art, some mod support, which is great. Some bonuses given, so they scaled some of the bonuses that the AIs get to be in line with the game speed, which sounds like a good change. I usually only play on sort of a normal speed, so I don't think this is going to affect me very much, or the way that I play. The increase the main plaza influence option output from 3 to 6 is really good. I tend to feel that the influence that you gain early on is pretty low, especially compared to the influence that's required and the kind of scaling that they have put in now. Load the influence from population from 2 to 1 in wireless telegraphy and mass entertainment technologies. I didn't even know this was a thing. Interesting. They modified enacting the civics cost formula to make it scale faster with the amount of enacted civics. I don't understand why. It's not like the civics was very easy to get already. Maybe they feel like even so you're still enacting too many civics and you should pick more carefully. I think a lot of the civics just are not applicable in a lot of situations, and I tend to pick specific civics, and not many of them are actually that useful in a lot of the situations that I happen to get in. But yeah, I don't know why this was done. This is not sort of an area where I think that the game really has a problem, but okay. As-feed empires can spend money on state propaganda to push back foreign influence. I think that's pretty good. Improved local pollution effect displayed on tooltip. Okay, explain the pollution better is always good. Lake Baikal tiles, I never noticed this, but apparently there was some movement cost problems. In relation to movement, I think there's more important things to fix than that. For example, if your units happen to get into a battle, like if they're captured in the combat area of a battle, and you never even pull them into the fight, they just sort of stand there as reserves, you still lose all of the movement, right? And if you had moved them before taking the battle, then you still were able to expend the movement, right? So that doesn't seem quite right. Like I get that if the unit actually fights, then it probably shouldn't be able to move. But if the unit actually never fights, why does it lose its movement? But anyway, proved shamanism tenant choice. This is really good. The shamanism has never been a particularly good choice. The fact that it only gave faith on administrative centers and not on main plazas before meant that it's pretty pointless to pick. Now it's actually probably even the better option. I'd have to think about it a little bit more, and it depends on the situation, but The 5, it depends on your mix of administrative centers and main plazas, whether or not this is now a good option. But I think the +2 5 compared to the 4 or 5 that you get on the main plaza. So you would have to have at least sort of 2 administrative centers attached for a city to generate more faith under this. It's probably still a little bit weak, especially early on when, this matters a lot. Later on, this probably gets better because you tend to attach more and more administrative centers. But it's, at that point, maybe your religion is already gone if you pick shamanism. So, I don't know. I guess it's somewhat situational. If you know that you're going to be by yourself and you have a lot of territory, this is probably now the better long-term pick. Okay, the number of territories needed for each expansion star has been adjusted depending on the number of territories on the map. That's a good change. I don't know if I will notice this change, but yeah. Okay, so cultural balancing. The Turks, that's one of the big ones. So +5 of district science output per adjacent research quarter instead of 300%. I think I'd have to play with this a little bit. But it's definitely not as much, right? This is a cut from 300% to 5%. It's probably a very, very big nerf that essentially changes the Turks from being one of the best cultures in that era to being so-so. And then they also reduced it to 1 science per food workplace. So I think that the Turks are probably no longer worth picking now that this change has been made. It could have been a lot less. I think 300% is way too much, but 5% is probably too little. But I think I'd have to play with it and see whether this actually, maybe this is balanced by something else, but I'm not sure. French emblematic district now only applies their science per population bonus when the city is in science mode. Ooh. That makes them so much weaker. I'm not sure why this was done. I didn't feel that the French were that good to begin with. Like, they're competitive, but now they're probably a lot less competitive. I mean, essentially, what this means is that if you want to take advantage of this bonus, you have to be focusing on science. So the opportunity cost now is a lot bigger. So I don't know. I'm not sure about this one. Huns and Mongols increase the production cost, training a full unit horde to match the 4x production of a single unit, converted to influence through buyout formula. Horde units require. So it used to be that it was very cheap to just purchase the 4 unit stack with influence. I think it was like 150 influence. I think this makes the Huns and Mongols like a lot worse than they used to be, because you already have to give up a lot to actually play the Huns and Mongols. Like, you don't get to focus on your economy at all. You can't attach any territories. You can't found any new cities. So you're really trying to fight, and that's the only thing that you're trying to do now. In the past, it was probably too cheap, but I don't know if 4x production is really the if this is appropriate. But I'd have to try it out and see if it is actually, like, if it cripples the strategy, which it could. Like, 4 times more influence to get a 4 stack is like 450 or something like that, right? Or maybe even more. 600 influence. 600 influence is a lot. So your units are not anywhere near as much throwaway as they used to be. So, don't know. I don't remember losing a lot of Hunnic hordes though from the past. But anyway, the horde units now require 2 horses as well instead of 1. So that's a big change too. Okay, Harapan's lowered emblematic district adjacency bonus to +2 per food district was +3. I think this is probably okay. The food per adjacent district was never. I never ended up building a lot of other food districts next to it, but I don't know. The weapons were already nerfed pretty hard with the reduction in combat strength of the scout unit that they get. Kama removed one industry per population effect on emblematic unit. Kama Brain now receives +4 per adjacent river. Ooh. The Kama were very strong. I don't know if +4 per adjacent river. So the Kama I think are sort of mid game. So at that point you might have 20 or 30 population. River tiles, I think it's sort of similar, but it depends on how many rivers you actually end up having. I don't know. I don't think the Kama were that strong, but okay. Franks, the Scriptures synergy bonus now only applies for adjacent research quarters instead of adjacent district. Okay, I didn't think the Franks were that strong. The legacy trade now includes research costs on fishing and sailing technologies. Okay, that's pretty forgettable. The legacy now includes management research imperial power technology. Okay, that's also pretty forgettable. It feels like a lot of the meaningful changes are making cultures worse, which I'm not sure if it's a good direction to go in, because the response to a culture being very strong shouldn't always be to just nerf the culture. Maybe think about the other cultures and make them better and more of a competitive pick. And if you keep like reducing how good a culture is, right, eventually you just get to the point where the picks are meaningless, right? Because all of them are not very good, and it doesn't really make a huge difference what you pick. It would be better if I think that the culture balancing, instead of looking at the strongest cultures and reducing their strength, it would be looking at the weaker cultures, why are they weaker, and making them stronger and making them more attractive, and also making sure that a culture is at least sometimes the right pick, like depending on situations, and not just if you're forced into picking them because there's no other good culture left, but that all of the cultures are viable options given certain game situations. So I still think that the food cultures, the Turks used to be good in the end game, but the food cultures just end up not being very good towards the end of the game because of the fact that even if you had more food, you can't grow more population because of the one population per turn growth cap that you can achieve, and also the fact that the what you can use population for is limited by the number of jobs that are actually available, and those jobs sort of not producing a huge amount. Like it doesn't scale as well as the adjacency bonuses and so on that you get from district. So population isn't that good, and there would be ways of changing that so that population is a lot better even in the late game, so that the food options are still really good to pick, the food cultures or agriculture cultures, so that they're still competitive. And the money cultures, I've spent a whole game just picking the money cultures, and I didn't find a meaningful difference in terms of money generation. So there's an opportunity there, and the influence cultures, there's an opportunity there as well, in making them stronger, because at the moment they don't really get that huge bonus, and influence stops being meaningful late in the game. Now that the civics are more expensive to pick, maybe you actually won't get a civic that you really want unless you pick one of the aesthete cultures. But anyway, so that's my take on the culture. I wish that it would be better to look at some of the cultures that are really weak picks and improving them, rather than looking at the cultures that are really strong and just making them less strong. Okay. Oh, Neolithic era. Reduced animal layer food gain from 20 food to 5 food. I don't know if the layer. I think the layer is the aggressive one, and doing that now goes to 5 food, which sort of understand. At least the sanctuary is still 20 food. At least I hope it is. Increase the mammoth combat strength from 13 to 14. I don't really know why. It was fine that the mammoth, you had to have 2 units to defeat a mammoth. But okay. Increase scout to rap and run and scout cavalry upkeep from 0 to 1. Again, making the rapins worse. But it's not a huge amount of money. It might mean that you have to dedicate some population into making money for you early on, but okay. Small 5 money buffer for unit upkeep to give players breathing room in the early engineer. So assume that the first 5 upkeep is free, so this sort of balances each other out and gives a bit of a holds you back a little bit from getting a huge number of units. Okay. Let's look at civics. Scientific facts, 1% science per holy site. That's good that it's a percentage based. So that's good. So religious minorities. I never found this to be that good. Usually my religion is pretty strong, but it might be worth it. Now, slaves, influence and production, military districts. Okay. That's interesting, actually. War slaves giving bonuses to influence and production, military districts. That's pretty good. Nuclear weapons. Choosing disarmament now gives war support. Ratings-based war support against you by 20. Okay, that's pretty good. A little bit of defense here. Cultural blessing. Added some influence on all citizens and resemblers, or a big amount of assimilated people, city, and administrative centers. I don't understand what they mean here. Okay, artistic expression, change effects of unlocked infrastructure to be per adjacency instead of flat. Okay. Choice now affects either slow down or hasten the speed of stability changes in all cities. I don't understand this one. I'd have to read the details. Political entitlement now provides +1 combat strength bonus on implemented units. Okay. I don't think I ever got to pick that. Political influence choices now provide cost reductions either to implemented districts, units, or culture wonders, right? Monarchy power choices now provide buyout cost reductions either for units or districts. Okay, no idea. I don't think that I'm that much into the civics. Okay, late stage snowball slogan. Reinforced strength of quadratic pop growth portion of population consumption and lowered linear cost increase. I don't understand. Population wasn't even that good. I guess the bonuses from population on some of the districts are pretty good. But even then, I'm not sure that this was really needed. Added a second exponential factor to grow district construction costs faster and reaching higher numbers. That's probably reasonable. Like the district spam that you can get to in the end game is pretty high. I need to see how big it is to know whether I'm okay with this. Apply the different scaling factor based on other research technologies or tech tier costs from the era and above. Okay, so you have to prioritize more, it sounds like here. And they made the technologies more expensive, which is interesting. One of the things is that the technology-based victory is usually the one that I get to the fastest. But anyway, unit upkeep allowance now uses game speed scale, right? Don't know what that means. Moved upkeep reduction to be visible regarding money impact. Okay, removed upkeep reductions for full armies. I didn't even know that was a thing, but okay. Important fixes, lots of things where things were stuck. Oh, this one is good. Hang on, there was one here. No, maybe not. Not in there. Fix an issue where siege units cannot. Yeah, this is the one that I was thinking of. This is good. It used to be that your siege units only could attack tiles that had a unit on it if you were trying to destroy the wall, but you might want to be trying to destroy the wall anyway to get your units into the city. So that's good. Never saw this. Fix an issue where deployed on it. Anyway, these are not that interesting. They are, I don't know, interrupted by turning it. Annexation can be interrupted by turning it tied into a city. Right. I have never seen this. The bigger issue is that the plundering doesn't stop. If you're plundering an outpost, you can still turn it into a city or attach it. That shouldn't be possible. Okay. Voice lines generated. I don't think any of this is important. Bite with population, empires and pollution. Okay. I think this is all not that meaningful. Okay, interesting. Diplomacy. I mean, there are some things in here that might be interesting, but nothing dramatic. I still want to see the Machu Picchu be fixed. I still haven't seen that anywhere, unless it's working as intended. But it's such a weird wonder, and I don't know. It never gave me any bonuses. It sort of sells it quite strongly. It's like 50% of your food now in this city is now available across your empire, which sounds very strong, but then it doesn't actually work and never was fixed. I don't know. Maybe it's a difficult wonder to get right. Map editor, Mac, very good. Love to see the Mac support. Some events. Okay. I think that's all the important stuff. So overall, so far, I'd love to see buffs to cultures that are not worth picking. Like, that would actually make me far more excited about patches, because at the moment, certain plays are just being removed from the game, right? As not being strong anymore. Making the Hansa Mongols worse, making the Turks worse, making the French worse, making the Rapans worse. It just takes away from how you can play the game to and make the cultural picks a lot less meaningful. It would be so much better if the approach was looking at the weak cultures and making them stronger, because then it unlocks more options, more good options that you can get excited about and pick and change the way that you gameplay. So there are some minor variations in the games that I play where sometimes I pick certain ones, sometimes I pick other certain ones, but it's from a core group. There are some that I wouldn't even think about. So that would be really good to see. Probably lots of fixes and bug fixes that we saw that will be good to get in. So yeah, but I think the game is going in the right direction, other than sort of making cultures worse, good cultures worse rather than bad cultures better. But yeah, so thanks for watching. Until next time, bye.